Good morning. Thank you for joining the webinar on the increasing ransomware threat in education. I am Renee Wheeler, Education Specialist at HBT. We hope that you find this useful and we look forward to following up with you afterwards. We are joined by a panel of experts, Matt Carson, Detective Inspector, Police Delivery Lead, Cyber Resilience Centre, and Adam Cronin from Redstor. We also have a special guest, Fred Welsby, Director of IT, Haberdashers Monmouth Schools. Before I hand over to Matt, I would like to give you a brief history of HBT Communications. HBT are the oldest and most experienced privately owned IT and telephony specialist in the UK. We have over 50 years experience in the delivery of communications and IT solutions within education. The journey we have been on in the last 30 years has seen more change in the last 2 years than ever before. The one part that hasn't changed is the threat landscape. This is evolving at a pace never seen before, and it is vitally important to understand how to mitigate and protect your organisation from this threat. This is why HBT have partnered with Redstor. Now we'll hand you over to Matt Carson.
Yes, good morning everyone, and thanks for joining us today, and thanks for the introduction. I hopefully got 15 minutes to just give you a bit of an idea about why cyber resilience centres are here, why they're across the UK now, and how we're working in partnership with people like Redstor to basically better protect local authorities, education, small and medium businesses. I'm Matt Carson. I'm a Detective Inspector and the Police Delivery Lead for the East Midlands Cyber Resilience Centre, but also talking on behalf of my other leads for the other centres. Okay. Always start a presentation with the scary clown. I don't know how to take that when somebody said that to me to start with. But why is the need for cyber resilience? I'm sure most of you on the call today already know the answer to this, but working for 5 years in the cybercrime unit of Derbyshire, if you came onto a screen like this in the morning as a business, as an authority, as a school, as an academy, you're in for a bad day. So it's basically, how do we stop coming onto the screen of a scary clown? And obviously this is an example of a ransomware attack. You probably do know what those are, but obviously where they encrypt your system and generally then encrypt your backups. And I've seen this time and time again. In fact, at one point, we were getting these almost on a daily basis within Derbyshire, and we knew they were massively underreported as well. So not only have you got your systems encrypted, but you also then have a demand for most likely Bitcoin, just to make it even more complicated for you. And I've literally been at an engineering firm where all the machines are down, all the staff are looking at the owner saying, what's going on? And the owner's basically calling the police saying, my systems are down, my backups are encrypted, nothing's working. How do I pay the ransom? And obviously we'll say, well, we recommend you don't pay the ransom. He says, well, it's only one Bitcoin. And I'll be saying, well, if you look at Bitcoin prices today, that's £39,000, you know, and then you've got the issue of buying it, then you've got the issue of potentially not getting it back. So the reason I bring this up is that obviously we're hoping to put prevention in rather than the cure, because putting the wheel back on when you've got this done and you've basically got your backups encrypted, you're going to be in a bad place. And I've literally seen, I'd say, a dozen businesses go under because of this. So it's just really, how do we stop the scary clown? Okay, just quickly go over a few bits and facts and figures. I don't like to bore people too much with it, but I think it just emphasises what the trends we're seeing are and what can be done to stop that scary clown, basically. And one of it is most of the breaches are down to human error. So first and foremost, from a cyber resilience centre perspective, is we've got to educate, and it's business owners. Myself, I've had to learn as well, running this centre. But 95% of breaches are due to human error. So there's that staff awareness training bit, and obviously within the centres, we do offer staff awareness training. We are partnered with the NCSC, and they also offer some really good, valuable free tools that you can sort of link into and use them to sort of update yourselves, your staff. It should be part of a regular routine that once a month, a quarter, whatever, that you have that sort of input. And if you align yourself with your local cyber resilience centre, there'll be some invaluable advice coming out daily on the news features and the posts. from our trusted partners, from our national partners, and you can pick those bits up in your lunch break or whatever, or you can then plan to have something done once a month, once a quarter. But actually, you could protect yourself from 95% of breaches by basically educating yourselves and your staff. Well, this was interesting. Obviously, I look at schools and local authorities as mini businesses because you've got turnover, you've got important data. I've been on the call this morning to the Assistant Commissioner, the new one at the Met, Angela McLaren, with the leads, and we're all saying the same thing. We need to sort of help and better educate people as to how to protect themselves online, because actually the average cost to a small business is 8,460, and that goes up slightly for medium businesses to 13,400. However, I can say that the attacks that we've just seen recently have been in the hundreds of thousands, and they do prey on public sector. And the Scary Clown episode has happened to a couple of schools in Derbyshire recently that I was involved in before I came onto the centre. So it's just to highlight that actually there may be a cost implication, but the actual initial cost implication of sorting things out would be a lot less than having to put the wheel back on afterwards. Almost half of all cyber attacks are then targeted at small businesses, and again, I do include local authorities and schools in this because we have seen an uplift in that. And people think, oh, they're just going after the big companies and the ones that can afford to pay the ransoms. Well, they're not. They'll tailor it and they'll tweak it, and they'll go after people that they know will have to pay the ransom to get that data back. And if you don't, they will wreak havoc with these systems. But you also got to think about the insider threat as well. And we've had no end of cases where recently where people have left an organisation and the policies and controls aren't in place to revoke passwords or put two-factor authentication in place, and it's allowed them then to go back in and cause hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of damage to systems. So again, if you're aligned with your local centre, there is guidance in there to better sort of put those policies and procedures in place. Seeing this time and time again. I walk through universities, I walk through councils, buildings, and how many times have you got a laptop with some sticky tape on the front of it with a username and password, and you're just basically asking for trouble. And you don't know who's walking through some of these buildings, and once you've got that, they've got access to your systems. So I just put that one on because I do see it time and time again, and people think, well, no one's going to do that, but they do. And again, the ex-employee, the disgruntled sort of IT person, and things like that can easily get those bits of information and hide their attack vector because it looks like it's been coming from a staff member because they basically just use their password and login details. 77% of organisations don't have a cybersecurity incident response plan. This is really critical, and I dare say it might even be a bit more when it comes to sort of larger sort of schools and local authorities. So don't get me wrong, some are really good. Key to this, and obviously the bit why obviously Redstor have invited us today, is the backup bit as well. So I'll just quickly talk about the NCSC sort of guidance on that, because part of your incident response plan would be to say, actually, let's pretend we've had a breach. What are our critical functions now to get back up and running, and what are the main services that we need to sort of provide on a daily basis? And that should be in your plan. And part of that will be to restore your backup, because actually, if you did suffer a ransomware attack, and you didn't have the right sort of backup in place, or you're still using removable storage, if you've got it offline, I'll just go through that now with the NCSC, then you really need to know what data you're willing to lose, or can afford to lose, or can't afford to lose in relation to your backup. So NCSC, I'll quickly go through this because I know I've got limited time, but they give it in 4 sections. One is the offline rule, which is at any given time, or one or more of your backups offline, you've got to make sure that you've got air-gapped storage and they're not hot, they're not plugged in. You've got to think about disasters such as fire, water damage, and then also attack vectors. So if you haven't got an offline backup, you're basically asking for trouble. You know, you should never have all your backups connected or hot, as they call it, at the same time, because the ransomware and those types of things actively go looking for your backups, and they'll actively go looking for them if you've got them offline and they're still connected. So you do need that air-gapped offline storage, which I know our partners such as Redstor do provide. So, and they'll also provide you with the like client management and access controls to those backups, which is quite important as well. Secondly, you've got the recovery rule that the NCSC talk about, which is data in the cloud and all those backups restorable and recoverable. Because part of your incident response plan would be to basically try and recover your backup. And pretend basically your system's down, let's recover the backup. How easy is it to do it? How quick does it take? How much data have I lost? I'll talk about how regularly you do that, but that is really important when you're doing your cybersecurity incident response plan, because if you do suffer a ransomware attack or you get an intrusion to your system and it's all down, you need to know that you've got a backup in place that can be installed fairly painlessly without having to rebuild all your systems. And hopefully that will contain all your critical data that you need to sort of keep. There may be some loss and you'll need to sort of work out in your plan what bit of loss are we prepared to take. But again, that is something that you can talk to the provider about. Third bit is the 3-2-1 rule. It's probably a mixture of cloud and removable storage in your backups. So the NCSC say that the 3-2-1 rule is really you should have 3 copies of a backup on 2 devices and 1 off-site. And I would definitely recommend the 1 off-site be in the cloud, in air-gapped storage, encrypted. And it will save a lot of angst and anxiety knowing that you've got that positioned correctly and that you can back it up from your incident response plan. And lastly, the NCSC recommend that you've got the regular rule. So is critical data backed up regularly, and obviously the more regularly you do it, the less data you're going to lose. It should you have to rebuild from start and back your data up. So again, that is something that you can talk to your provider about, and obviously that's why Redstor, one of our trusted partners in relation to that, because obviously they do provide that function. And if you've just got, I mean, I was the same. I had removable media for a couple of years. But you have to remind yourself to go and change it out, and you have to sort of remind yourself, actually, have I took that off site this time? And half the time it was still in the same building, but if we suffered a catastrophic loss in that building, I'd have lost all the police's data in relation to cybercrime. So you're not, no one's alone in this, and it was a learning curve for me. But by obviously aligning yourself with your local centre, this is all advice and things that you sort of can come into, and we're basically gathering it all together to really help organisations like yourselves recover from what could potentially be a disaster. And hopefully it won't be. Hopefully you won't come onto a scary clown. But knowing you've got that there, and obviously with the Commissioner's Office for Information, your data protection, all that around, you've got to be looking after the data within your organisation. It will help you sleep better at night. Trust me. Put this one on as well, because most companies almost take nearly 6 months to detect a data breach, even major ones. So before you know it, you'll be having people come in and saying, actually, I've had X amount of things bought on Amazon in my name, with my username and an account, etc. And basically those details have been abstracted from your systems, and it just took a while for it to sort of be sold on the dark web, and then for those people to come back to you to say, and now I know it's come from a breach in your systems, and it'd probably be the people connected with the breach that will be telling you that you've been breached and you won't know it. So there are things again that you can do to make sure that you don't suffer those, or you can detect those data breaches. And looking at your log files, etc. Again, that's beyond the 15 minutes I've got here, but it's something you certainly need to sort of take into consideration. So, what is the East Midlands Cyber Resilience Centre, or what should I say, is your local cyber resilience centres, because we all do the same thing. Well, we're a government-backed, not-for-profit initiative, and we basically align ourselves in partnership with policing. So I'm the police delivery lead. I link in every day to the East Midlands Special Operations Unit. So every morning, if there are sort of any zero-day exploits or things that the membership need to know, we can pump that out through our website, through our social media platforms, through LinkedIn, Twitter, anything like that, that, you know, depending on what medium people want to listen it through the centre, they can do. So you'll be kept up to date with the latest sort of ransomware attacks, things like that, zero-day exploits from Microsoft, which we've recently had. We're also in partnership with local universities, and we use the best up-and-coming cybersecurity students that are studying with degrees who get brought on by chief ethical hackers that are aligned to the centres, and they provide up to 9 services, which can be, as we spoke about, staff awareness training. It can be, you know, web testing, a little bit of penetration testing, internet investigation. How many of you know that, you know, those people in charge of your systems may have already had their passwords breached, etc. So you could do an internet investigation on your organisation or an individual. And those students provide those services and some bespoke ones as well, should you wish to sort of tweak it to your needs. And we realise it in policing, and I've realised it for a long time, that we cannot do it all. We can come in, but we should be on the point of contact for local authorities, and then we can basically do the grunt work for you, because what we can do is work with the police, but then we need to involve partners, trusted partners, managed service providers, people like Redstor that can obviously help you with your backup solutions, which are vitally important when you're doing your continuity plans. And we've done the due diligence on those companies as well. So it's a mixture of them, police, academia, and working with our trusted partners across the UK to basically help organisations like yourself. So if you've got your link with your centre, you get your daily briefings, and you can be as involved or as little or as much as you want. But it comes a time that actually let's just, you know, press reset. Let's have a look at our systems. Let's talk to somebody. You know, the police. I work with the Police Protect Network as well, so you can get introduced to your local Protect officer. But ultimately, you may have to put something in place, and that's where our trusted partners and business links will come into, because we've done obviously that due diligence with it. So again, we support the small and medium enterprises within the East Midlands, but the network of centres do it nationally. But if you sign up, core membership is always free for our core members. It will give you access to all the NCSC tools that we're partnered with, exercise in a box to do some continuity planning exercises that we've talked about, the staff awareness training on there that's free. You can get access to police cyber alarm, which is again another government funded system where you can put an alarm on your for free on your outside your firewall, and it will monitor the attack vectors coming in and give you a monthly report on where you should be concentrating on closing ports and things like that, and can give you guidance on doing that. So there is really loads of things that you can get out of joining your local centre. And also find out who we're partnered up with should you need that sort of new backup policy, that new sort of managed service provision. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. That was really insightful. So now I'd like to welcome our friends at Haberdashers Monmouth Schools, who were recently hit by a ransomware attack and have kindly agreed to speak today about their experience, how they managed it, and ultimately what the outcome was from the incident. Fred, would you mind just giving us a brief bio of your role at the school, and then if you would be able to help kind of set the scene around the way your IT was set up pre-incident, how you first found out you'd been hit, maybe cover how did it get into your system, what was the immediate impact, and how you began recovering.
Okie dokie. Right, I'm Fred Wellsby, the Director of IT for the Haberdashers Monmouth Schools. There's 5 schools in the town, from pre-prep up to sixth form. I've been working for the school for 14 years. We've had various incidents in the past, but this is the first major one that we've had. Quick brief view of how our systems were set up before the incident. We've got a small IT team of 8 people to look after the 5 schools. We were set up, all of the IT team were domain admins. Not a very bright idea, but it was done for convenience and has been done historically within the school, even though the security landscape has changed. We just delivered, due to the global pandemic and working from home, we just delivered new Microsoft Surface devices to all of our teaching staff and installed new touch screens into all the classrooms. This allowed the teachers to be able to both work from home and in the classroom, depending on the current situation. The teachers have to move from room to room, as the class bubbles were meant to be stationary. When they moved from room to room, we found that they needed to calibrate their device to the screen each time, and that required local admin access to the device to actually access the Microsoft calibration tool. So because we had so little time to get all of the surfaces, the classrooms set up and all the devices out to the staff, it was decided that we would give them local admin access. This enabled them to calibrate the screens each time they moved from room to room, which was convenient. Also, when they took their devices home, if they wanted to install a printer or another device to connect to their Surface, they needed local admin access. So that's not a good idea. But due to previous minor malware incidents that we've had over the past 4 or 5 years, I decided that we needed to have a substantial backup. So I decided to engage with Redstor to have a cloud backup system installed. This was only about a year ago, to work in concert with our local backups. So that's basically the current setup and how we were set up at the time the incident happened. Now moving on to the how we first found out that we'd been hit by an incident. I came into work and said good morning to my engineer and said, how are things? And he said, it's a disaster. And we found that he'd been downstairs. Someone had reported problems with the internet. He went down into the server room, and instead of being lots of nice green flashy lights, we had lots of orange lights, which meant that the servers weren't happy at all. So on investigation, we found that this was a virtual environment running VMware with a virtual server infrastructure. We managed to log on to a domain controller that was still fully active. And whilst trawling through the hard drives of that, we noticed that we had some files that weren't there before, and a whole load of tools in a folder. So we realized pretty much instantly that we'd had some sort of ransomware attack, and our server infrastructure had been encrypted apart from a domain controller that they used to initiate the attack. So we instantly then disabled the internet into the school and out of the school, removed all network access from the server rooms to try and limit any damage out to our endpoints. And that's it. We realized then that we had a major incident on our hands. We contacted our IT partner to start getting advice. I advised the senior management team, who then started to inform the relevant authorities and the IOC. We then started to work out a plan with our IT partners of how to restore all of our data and get our servers back up and running, because we had no email, no logons. It was pen and paper time. So we started to do an investigation of how on earth did this happen? How did this get onto our system? We had some advice from our cyber insurance, which we'd only taken out a year or so before. Working with them, we did some investigations, and although we didn't find the actual keylogger that they suspect was used, we found the device that we suspect the initial attack was instigated from. We then also started trawling through the logs on the remaining domain controller to find out who'd logged on and when and what had happened. And we found that one of our IT team was creating odd accounts late at night. So we suspect a keylogger was installed on one of the surfaces, non-maliciously, probably an accidental install by a member of staff. Our IT support went to support them. He logged on with his account, which was a domain admin. They trawled the credentials from that account, logged into our systems via a VPN, and then started creating their own accounts. And this was done overnight. We suspect it all happened quite quickly. I know some of these incidents take quite a while with them doing research, but from what we could see, they got on overnight, did a sort of a net scan, found out all of the devices and servers that were on the network that they could access, created a domain admin account, and started trawling through our data to see what was valuable to us. So once they were in with the domain admin account, they just had full control. There was nothing they couldn't do. Basically, they then started running the tools, which encrypted all of the servers bar the domain controller they were actually using to initiate the attack. The immediate impact of this in the morning was that nobody was able to log on to any computers. Even if we'd have left the network connected, they wouldn't have been able to get access. We had no internet, no teaching on site or remotely, and there was no access to any of our services, including our databases, email systems. Basically, everything was off. It was back to the days of paper and pencil. So we started to do our initial recovery from the incident. Once we realized that this was an utter disaster, contacted our IT partner, got a plan into action, which took the best part of a day before we could do anything, as we were relying on them to supply us with advice on how to proceed next. Once we realized this, we put all of our virtual server environment into isolation, removed all of the infected servers, and then started doing a recovery, rebuilding domain controllers, and recovering our servers from our backups. So having Redstor being installed, and we've got about 15 terabytes of data that was stored in Redstor at the time, was absolutely a godsend, really. We did have backup software on-prem. One of the backup servers was on domain. That was fully encrypted, so they'd hit our backup systems as well. But one of our backup systems was off domain. That was unaffected. So we both had a cloud backup and some of our servers on an unaffected local backup, which I'm really glad about, because that meant we could recover 90% of the servers that were taken down. And not only that, we could recover them to a day or so in the past. So the loss of data was quite limited. The databases themselves, when we brought those back, they seemed to be unaffected. When we brought the databases back, the amount of data that was lost due to the recovery was very minimal, which was great. We then expired all the passwords of all of our users on the day and started changing all of the service passwords for all of our services, servers, every password was basically changed on the network. That took quite some time and was quite inconvenient for our users. How bad could it have been and how successful was the recovery? Well, I believe it was a very bad attack, but it could have been a lot worse if we hadn't had multiple backups in multiple locations and a cloud backup system. If we hadn't had a cloud backup system, we would have still been at this moment with very limited services. So I was very relieved that we decided to get Redstor on the cloud. It's taken us 1 month to recover our systems so far. We got email back up and running within about 10 days. And then we were having our users coming in to reset their passwords and then get back onto email. And the school was then beginning to function again as a school within 2 weeks of the incident occurring, including the day or so of just taking an advice before we actually did anything. So we're now back up and running after a month with all of our core functions, and we're functioning fully as a school again, being able to work from home and on premise. So I felt that the incident was a massive wake-up call to the school, but the recovery was a success. We didn't even think of paying the ransom. It was a horrendously high value, and working with our cyber insurance and the security company, we had an investigation of what data was taken, and it was decided that we'd bite the bullet, inform the people that had data taken. And we were lucky that the data they took was not critical. They thought it was, but it wasn't. So we were very, very lucky there. So we're now pretty much back up and running. We've got a couple of servers that weren't very important, like a couple of CCTV servers that are now being brought back. But due to the incident, we only kept CCTV for 2 weeks anyway, so all of that data was old, so we decided to start from scratch with those. So that's pretty much a brief overview of what happened and how we recovered. And now we're in the process of ensuring that this can't happen again. The idea of having all of our IT team as all domain admins, that's not happening anymore. And now we're moving into delegation of tasks and roles for each person. It's a lot more inconvenient for the team, but we feel far more secure, and we're looking into much better antivirus, anti-malware, ransomware software, email filtering, etc. So there's a huge investment being taken place in the school now to upgrade all of these systems. And that basically is pretty much all I've got to say. I hope it was useful.
That was excellent, Fred. Thanks very much. Now we're at that time for the demonstration. I'll hand you over to Adam.
So I've just dropped to my desktop here, and on my desktop you'll see there is a tool here called Disk Checker. So the scenario I'm painting here is that maybe you're having a problem with a server, maybe you've gone onto a Microsoft forum, and somebody who you don't know has put a post up there saying, if you download this tool and you're getting this error, running this Disk Checker tool is going to solve all of your problems. So if I just show you on my hard drive here, I've got a whole host of different files that are in my file server area. So if I just drop back to my desktop, I'm going to simply run this Disk Checker tool. And if we return back to that folder, if we just keep an eye on it for a second, what you might spot, a few things that are odd that are actually taking place in a second. So we'll just give that a moment or two to work. There we go. All of a sudden, those nice thumbnails of all my Word documents and various bits and bobs are all of a sudden changed. And now we're hit with an image from the ransomware basically saying that, oops, all of your files have been encrypted. a little bit of an explanation to say, you know, your precious documents, your videos, databases are no longer accessible. However, in order to recover them, you can still recover your files, so that they say, as long as you go onto the dark net, you follow some procedures in getting a Bitcoin, and then using this reference number, you pay the fine, or the ransom, should I say, and then you're at the mercy that this particular payload and the key that you're provided will actually help unencrypt that data. So again, if I return back to my file server area, you can see that all of these files that were originally Word documents and all sorts, if I just take one of these at random, and let's just open it up with Notepad, just to have a little look inside. As you can see, my developer that actually wrote this virus, yeah, he's not held back. In fact, all of that data is encrypted using Chinese hieroglyphics there. Right, so I've got a bit of a problem. So one of the interesting things about ransomware is 9 times out of 10, they're going to leave the operating system functioning, because they want you to be able to see this message over here. They want you to be able to have the confidence in that you pay for that Bitcoin and you get the key back, that the server will be back to normal. So in this case, I don't really care about this file server folder, because I know that I've got it backed up. So I'm just going to simply completely delete that folder, so it's gone. So no problems there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load my backup agent that's installed on my server. And let's just bring that up into view. And you'll see here, this is my this is the Redstor interface. You can see that the D drive on this server was protecting all of those files that were in that folder. Obviously, they're gone now. So in this case, what we're going to simply do is move to the Redstor restore folder or tab, and then you'll see the backup client pull in an index of the last backup on the 29th of June. And then if I plus out the D drive and go and look for my file server, there are all of those files that have just been encrypted. So in my case, because I've got a reliable backup service, I can just simply include those files, hit the restore button at the top, and in this case, I want them to go back to the original location. If I show the advanced options, you'll see that I'm also going to recover the file and folder permissions as they were before. So if I hit restore, we'll now watch the backup client make a SSL TLS encrypted tunnel to Redstor's data center and request the few hundred meg that's in that folder, and then put it back onto my D drive as it looked. Almost done. And there we go. So there's the 297 meg restored in 27 seconds. Obviously, it's only a little bit of test data. And of course, then if I go and revisit after refreshing my folder structure and going into my file server area, there you go. No problems at all. And my files are there as they would have looked like before I was hit with ransomware.
Thank you to all our presenters. That was really useful and some fantastic insights into the work that is being done. Moving forward, we will follow up with you separately and answer any additional questions and give you the chance to try Redstor. I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of the team on the call this morning to thank you all for your time. Thank you.